Today I'll show you how I made this miter saw workbench. I've added quite a few features, including a place to install my shop vac and dust collection, a place to put my miter saw, of course. I have built-in T-tracks, built-in measuring tape, stop blocks. If you're wondering where to put your tracks for your track saw, I've incorporated a spot for that too. There's even a spot for dog treats. Cutting all the legs now, using the stop block on this stand. I'll be glad to get rid of that. Needed 8 of those. Now the supports. Cutting the edges off the boards. Just a cleaner look. I'm just doing this on the legs. And I do have my shop vac on, and dust collection is not working too well. Setting up my pocket holes. Don't forget to verify your setup. Shop vac. This thing works okay. I mean, it works great actually. It's just getting it to stay in place. These are the legs. I'm using those right angle clamps. I use these things all the time. There's a shop dog. He's looking for dog bones. The pocket holes are incredible. So I'm going to use my first workbench to my second workbench going. These are both 93 inches long, and I'm going to mark these just like I would when framing a wall, with a square on both of them, and then separate them and put the supports in between. I'm going by my SketchUp drawing now, just because I've got a space here where my miter saw is going to go that's long enough to hold my shop vac. So the design changes with the width of your shop vac, of course. So I know I'm going to have a support on each end, and from that end, 1.5 inches. From there, I'm going to go 18 3/4. And it doesn't have to be exact. 18 3/4. And then 21 inches. And then from the other side, 15 3/4. So now I have marks everywhere I'm going to have a support. This is where the support's going to go. And this will match the SketchUp drawing. These are 3-inch long screws. Pre-drilling everything. I won't bore you with the whole thing, putting it together. Just like that, I'm done. So now I get to use my new track saw. I'm going to rip the piece to 21 inches and cross cut to 93. So first I got to get it set up. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my new track saw. I'll put a link to this track saw, setting it up. Been really happy with this thing. I've been using it for about a month. Several projects, so it's great to have as a good tool. Make sure all the legs are square. Those 3-inch squares again. I use this little T ruler too all the time. I need to get a bigger one. Well, with 2x4s, these clamps work really well. So this is the upper right portion of the top of the bench, right here. See the dimensions there? You kind of get the idea of what I'm doing here. Putting the legs on. This will be flipped over. Put onto the legs. I'll just clamp it here and make sure it's all square before I screw everything together. So I'm working on the left side now. This will be the upper left-hand side top. I'll show you here in a minute with the drawing. There's the dimensions right there. So if you look at the legs, they're an inch up from the table. I actually cut them at 30.5 inches instead of 31.5. So I had to raise all 4 legs up an inch. Don't do that. I didn't even follow my own drawing. Use my square here to mark a line. Make sure everything stays square. Time for the legs on this side. All with pocket hole screws. This makes it real easy to assemble this thing. Whoops, hit another screw. Here goes the supports for the miter saw. For me, it was real easy. My miter saw's deck is 3.5 inches. So I know just going to the bottom of those 2x4 is going to put me just perfect. There it is in the drawings with all the dimensions. Time to put the wheels on. There's that little T-roller again. This thing's heavy. Get some help if you can. I don't wonder why my back hurts. Having that foam there, that saves a lot of wear and tear on my workbenches. So the top is actually 2 pieces of 3/4 inch plywood. One of the caster wheels sitting in my drain, so it rocks back and forth. Verifying where to place the miter saw so I can get full extension. I ended up getting 45 on the left and 55 on the right. If I need more than that, I might have to cut a corner. Everything's nice and flush. So this is what I've got so far. Screwed this thing down to this top layer. I'm going to mark where my fence is. I'm going to use my dado stack on my table saw to put a T-track in, embed it in just behind the fence, and then put a measuring tape on. So I just got back with this today from Lowe's. I'm going to see if this works. It's a shop vac hookup for a brush, but the brush comes right off and we've got a 2.5 inch 90 degree. Let me switch this around so you can see what's going on. Ah, that's much better. So I'm going to install one of these on the side so I can plug the miter saw and the shop vac in. When the miter saw comes on, it automatically turn the shop vac on. So this is where I decided to mount this. This is so short it doesn't do me any good. All my outlets are too far up to actually plug this in. So I need an extension cord anyway. I'll hang one off to the side here or in the back. I haven't decided yet, but I'll put a little hanger back here for an extension cord. And that way I can roll it around to wherever I need the dust collection. So I'll go ahead and get started. Pretty simple. Extension cord here, it's a 12-3. I would advise getting heavy duty extension cords when you're running these big miter saws and table saws. You really need at least 12 gauge wire. Don't go with the cheap little 14 or 6, they even sell 16 gauge extension cords. Those are really light duty. Don't use those. So this is marked A and B. A is where the miter saw gets plugged into, and B is where the shop vac gets plugged into. Well, that's awesome. I don't have to drag that bucket and shop vac around anymore. I'll just pull this up whenever I need it. Just pull it a little ways from the wall, and now I can use this as an outfeed table because it's at the perfect height. I made sure of that. And I don't have to deal with this bucket. I like it. Putting some zero clearance tape on this miter saw, see how it works. My original plan was to put lumber on this, but Really wasn't practical. Shop dog coming to make his inspection. And cut this PVC so it just rides along the top of there. So I just mount the dowels here and then let the lumber roll over the PVC. If you want to put these in, make sure they're real tight fit. It makes it a lot easier to drill in. I cut one a little short, and it was a bear to put in. Okay, that's right at 7/16. So for this workbench, I've marked where the fence is right here. So I know where the fence is going to be. I want my two-track to be back behind here so I can put a block in here with the measuring tape in front of it. So I need to cut a dado 3/4 of an inch just back from this line. It's a 1/2 inch wide, so I'm going to have to change the dado stack. So I'm going to have to barely cut into here. You can see I use this board a lot. Oh boy, I think that's perfect. It's just flush with the wood. Yeah, that's going to be great. Perfect width, perfect depth. I'm happy. So the top gets screwed from the bottom. That way I can always replace it if I need to. Time to make stop blocks. I'm actually making 2. So I need to cut a dado into here, and I debated whether to put my dado stack in or just cut 3 passes with this blade, 3 or 4. And I think I'll just go ahead and try this blade. Got my crosscut sled here. Went ahead and set the blade to be 3/8. I set my stop block to make it easy for me to move it over 1/8. So we'll give it a shot and see how well this works. Where's my hearing protection? So as you can see, I cut too much. Put a shim in there. Dang, I won't do that on the next one. I'm going to make 2 blocks. So that was a big mistake, cutting this too wide. So I've got these curved size cutouts. Maybe I could, yeah, that's going to work. So what I'll do is I'll get this all glued up in here, and then after the glue dries, I'll chisel this out, and that'll be good. Don't have a drill press yet, so this is what I'm using my square to try to get it as straight as I can. Drill press will come after my jointer and planer. So I'll make a mark right there. Set up my stop block right at that mark. Give something a cut. Verify it's exactly 18 inches. Now I know exactly where to put that tape. So I'm just going to remove the backing from around the 18. And start the other two. Now, before I make that permit, I'm going to set my stop block up at 20. Make another cut. How about, I'll set it up at 17. Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and get this down. So now it's time for the other side of the workbench with my left and right. Found my board I cut exactly. This one's exactly 18 inches. Put it right up against the tooth. Test this one out as well. Perfect. So now it's time to make this convertible, so I can take this miter saw off and have a flat surface here. So I'm going to cut two pieces of 2x4, 21 inches long, fit right in here, and then cut another panel to fit on top of that, and I'll screw that down to it. I'll probably use pocket screws so the top will be completely flat. I haven't decided whether to put a T-track in it or not, so I'll go ahead and get started on that. So someday you're going to do this. I didn't set the depth correctly for the type of wood I was using. I still had it set up for 2x4 on a 2x4 instead of 2x4 to 3/4 inch. Had to redo the pocket holes, and the way you do that is I just set this to 3/4 and reset the depth of the drill bit to match the 1.25 inch screws I'm going to use. And then I had to redo them, so if you ever see anybody with a board like this, you know what's going on. You'll see here in a minute that this design actually changes. I'm going to get my jigsaw out and make some modifications, so I'll have to modify this. There we go. So I need a better way to line this up. When I take this off and put it back on, if I don't get it exactly right, then the measurements will be off on both sides. So I put these marks on here, and that helps, as long as this is flush and these marks line up. But I got to thinking that I'd like to cut all this extra wood off to reduce the weight, and I need a way for it to key into here. I got an idea of drilling out some holes all the way through to the second one and putting a dowel in, 1/2 inch dowel, and make it flush, glue it into the bottom one, and that way I can just put the board on top of that dowel and have it exactly right. And there's 4 corners here, so I can do it on all 4 corners. I end up not attaching the saw to anything. It makes it a lot easier to get the saw up and onto the dowels. I'll just leave the cutout bolted to the bench. I think you're going to like this T-track. I love the irony of using my workbench to build my workbench. So this is where the design change comes in. Get around that cutout. Time for the trim now. I'm putting a round over on all these. I kind of make a butt joint at the end. I wish I wouldn't have done that. I wish I would have mitered it like my other bench. Makes it a lot harder with the round over. Don't forget to put a notch in there so you can get your clamps in and out, your stop block. Yeah, I sanded it down to make it look as good as I could, but I wish I would have used miters. This is the first time I've used this water-based poly. Turned out pretty well. I'll go ahead and include a link to the plans. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you haven't.